How about some benchmarks? Dream Air SE versus the original Dream Air. We're going to check out how much better performance you can expect by going for the SE or the high-end VR headset on a budget. After all, apart from the significantly lower price, I guess the performance or better frame rates should be the main reason to go for the SE, right? Like I showed you in the last video, when running both the headset at native resolution, the Dream Air SE renders less than half of the total number of pixels per eye. Now, does it mean that we get the double frame rate using the Dream Air SE? Well, we are about to find that out by testing both headsets in 5 or actually 6 different VR games and simulators on my RTX 4090 rig. But before we jump into the tests, please listen carefully, because this is very important. In all these tests, you will see a very low frame rate when running the Dream Air, sometimes ridiculously low, and that is intentional. This is not how bad the Dream Air runs in general on my PC, trust me. Here I am maxing out the in-game settings in all games, and my goal is to force my RTX 4090 down to its knees, struggling as much as possible. Obviously, we will keep identical in-game settings for both headsets. The only difference is the rendered resolution. Keep in mind that the SE runs natively at 72 Hz, while the Dream Air maxes out at 90 Hz, so I am forced to overkill the graphical settings to get a fair benchmark result. Now, don't let these benchmarks scare you away from the Dream Air. These are extreme tests tuned in to max out the GPU and keep the frame rate very low to prove the difference. Alright, let's start off with Automobilista 2. By completely maxing out in-game settings, including anti-aliasing and only skipping enhanced mirrors, we're pushing the game visuals to its absolute limits when racing Azur in Monaco or the Monte Carlo track. With the original Dream Air at Pimax Play image quality set to 1.0, the rendered resolution is 5188 by 4168 pixels per eye, and my RTX 4090 is completely choking. We start off with a frame rate of around 30 frames per second, and throughout the race it never really improves. We peak out at 35 frames per second, I think, while many times we dip below 30. It's obvious that the GPU is the bottleneck here at this high fidelity and resolution, giving us frame times close to 30 milliseconds, which is pretty insane. Maxing out the in-game settings may not be a clever idea at such high resolution, and honestly this is complete overkill, since Automobilista 2 can indeed reach 72 or even 90 frames per second on the Dream Air after some tweaking and optimization. We keep the same overall settings and switch to a Dream Air SE running native resolution at 72 Hz. We still have Pimax Play image quality at 1.0 of course, now rendering 3116 by 3072 pixels per eye. And yeah, check out the frame rate, locked 72 frames per second, continuously matching the refresh rate. A total smooth experience, I would say, although not as super sharp, crispy and high resolution as with the original Dream Air, but still a great looking experience thanks to the micro OLED technology. So we went from around 30 frames per second to 72 frames per second stable. That is almost 150% performance boost, or nearly 2.5 times the frame rate on average. This is even better than I expected, or actually it is pretty proportional to the number of pixels rendered for each headset. Now let's try the Dream Air SE upscale mode at 90 Hz. On default, it's running 2352 by 2320 pixels per eye, but in this test I increased the Pimax Play image quality to 1.25, which gives us a resolution close to 3000 by 3000 pixels per eye. This makes the image slightly sharper and crispier. It's not as sharp as the native SE resolution at the 1.0, but it's still looking very good. Here, we're continuously getting smooth 90 frames per second throughout the race. I couldn't even notice one single frame drop. We went from 30 to 72 and now 90 frames per second. This is 3 times the frame rate that we achieved with the original Dream Air at maximum ultra in-game settings. Our second game to try is Half-Life Alyx. Here I'm using a command line to max out the graphics, including MSAA at 4 and max fidelity at 6 with the dynamic resolution disabled, of course. The in-game settings are also set to highest fidelity. Now all this together is complete overkill in my opinion, but perfect for this benchmark. The game looks like a dream on the Dream Air, but frame rate is terrible. We are hovering around 40 to 45 frames per second on my RTX 4090 and it dips all over the place, sometimes down to mid-30s. The frame times are between 20 and 24 milliseconds. Completely unplayable, I would say, but that was also the point of this test. With the SC at native resolution and same settings, we stay mostly at maxed out 72 frames per second in the 72Hz mode. Sure, there are some dips during explosions and intense action, but I do not really feel that more than seeing the FPS number on screen. Frame times are down to between 7 and 10 milliseconds, and I am enjoying a fully smooth game that looks amazing on the Dream Air SC, even if it cannot compete with the flagship in terms of clarity and especially color accuracy. Also here, we got roughly double performance or double frame rate by just switching out the headset. In the upscale mode at 90Hz, I did the same thing again and increased Pimax Play image quality to 1.25 to gain that extra resolution and better sharpness. The result? Locked 90 frames per second and still almost no jagged edges thanks to MSAA at 4 taking care of the aliasing. I think this is a game where the Dream Air SC upscale mode works really well and serves the best without reducing the image quality too much at least and still preserving great details. Very playable and of course fully smooth at 90 Hz. Microsoft Flight Simulator may not be the best title to benchmark a headset's resolution since it's so CPU heavy and my old Ryzen 5950X is always a bottleneck. But I did what I could by completely maxing out the in-game graphical settings, almost all at ultra level, while running DLSS at quality preset using the latest DLSS 4.5. In fact, I did disable dynamic foveated rendering for these tests because the DFR feature built into the simulator was tanking my CPU even more, making the benchmark a bit misleading. Anyway, to make it simple, I settled for a discovery flight around Bora Bora after figuring out that it's significantly less CPU heavy than any other free flights I tried. With the Dream Air and these overkill ultra settings, I could barely maintain 30 frames per second on my RTX 4090. Sure, it's somewhat playable and the frame rate does not fluctuate much, but it's far from what I would call smooth. Despite MSFS 2024 being so CPU heavy, when trying the same scenario with the Dream Air SC, we get nearly a double frame rate again, between 50 and 60 frames per second most of the time, sometimes even above 60. What also differs is the image quality, clarity and sharpness. Here, Dream Air really kills the SC. The Sony Micro OLED panels brings out better colors, while the high resolution is so obvious in the cockpit and even outside. Having said that, if you have never been using the Dream Air and you're coming from any other VR headset, I still think you will love what you will see in the SC version. I honestly wasn't expecting to get a double frame rate with the SC, especially not in MSFS 2024, and this could be a game changer for flight sim geeks that can live without that extra advantages of the original Dream Air. And you wonder about upscale mode, right? Don't even bother. In flight simulators like this, it does indeed degrade image quality too much to even be considered as an option. Leave the upscale mode for other VR games instead. Now let's try out Kayak VR Mirage. I maxed out everything to ultra levels, of course, enabled MSAA and also highest level 5 for DLSS. And yes, we are using DLSS 4.5, the latest version, by manually injecting it with DLSS Swapper. Game looks incredible and almost stupidly sharp and crisp, but the frame rate tanks, between 40 and 50 frames per second, most of the time closer to 40. Yes, I would say that with these overkill settings and the native Dream Air resolution, it's simply unplayable. But that was also the intention here. Now let's fire up the Dream Air SC, keeping the identical in-game settings, We get fully locked 72 frames per second and not even a single dropped frame, from what I can tell at least. Since we went from a frame time of 20 milliseconds down to between 10 and 12 milliseconds, we are definitely capable of rendering more than 72 frames per second, but obviously the 72 Hz refresh rate is limiting us. When switching to 90 Hz upscale mode and Pimax Play at 1.25 again, we do get a rather stable 90 frames per second experience and a frame time around 10 milliseconds. The problem is that the game does not look as great in upscale mode. You see no aliasing thanks to the DLSS 4.5, but the clarity just isn't good enough in my opinion. Again, not the best scenario for using upscale mode on the SC. DCS World, or Digital Combat Simulator, is another example of where DreamAir's resolution really pushes the GPU, while the simulator also is very CPU heavy. Some maps are easier to run smoothly, like the Nevada map, but for this test I chose Persian Gulf map, which has way more buildings and more complex scenery. I use very high settings in-game, but also run these tests with quad views over Pimax XR. Quad view's foveated area is set to 200%, which is a bit overkill for the DreamAir. I have usually no problems running at 125 or 150% on my rig, but with 200 and some of these in-game settings bumped up, my RTX 4090 and the Ryzen 5950X are just too weak. I get between 40 and 50 frames per second just doing a free flight over Dubai. With the DreamAir SC, we get between 65 and 72 frames per second, many times completely smooth 72. It's totally playable, and other maps like Nevada or Caucasian map easily maxes out at 72 frames per second. So roughly 60% performance boost, and I suspect it would be much higher if it wasn't for my old CPU not keeping up in DCS World. Because in both examples, the CPU was the bottleneck, not the GPU or the render resolution. Still, just by switching to the DreamAir SC with a lower rendered resolution does significantly help, which I didn't really expect. DCS World actually looks very good on the SC, even if I do miss some extra clarity and sharpness in the cockpit, since the original DreamAir has been my daily driver for months now. And yeah, the 90 Hz upscale mode, we do in fact reach an even higher frame rate overall, but it's really not worth it, as the upscale image at even Pimax Play 1.25 is underwhelming in terms of clarity and some aliasing it introduces in this case. Lastly, I may repeat myself a little here since I showed you the following results in my last DreamAir SC video already by running Assetto Corsa Rally with UEVR injector. Using very high in-game settings, Pimax Play image quality at 1.0 rendering native resolution. DreamAir performed 40 to 43 frames per second. With the SE, we run this game at almost locked 72 frames per second in the native resolution mode at 72 Hz. A few dips here and there down to maybe 68, but nothing that I really noticed while driving. The game looked great and free of jaggies, although it will never be as sharp, crispy and beautiful as it is on the DreamAir. But in my opinion, when doing sim racing, the smooth frame rate and consistent frame times are considerably more important than additional sharpness or clarity. After enabling the 90 Hz upscale mode, we could even run it pretty smoothly at between 85 and 90 frames per second. The upscale mode does degrade the image quality a bit, but it's really not bad in a racing simulator that already removes jagged edges with DLSS 4.5. Alright, there we go. As you probably would expect, we mostly get double the frame rate using the DreamAir SE compared to the original DreamAir. Sometimes even more than the double performance, as long as your CPU is not bottlenecking your system, especially in flight simulators. I also tried a few other games which I didn't bother to fully record, but they all showed very similar results. So here's my short conclusion. If you maybe have an RTX 4080, a 4090 like mine, or a 5090, I would still go for the DreamAir every day. The image quality of the DreamAir is stunning. Like, completely unbeatable, I would say. And I think most will agree here. Just check out VR flight sim guy Steve's recent video.
You know, I don't know of a single person that's tried the Dream Air and is not blown away with the display in this. I'm worried because if this headset breaks, you're not going to want to go back into VR ever again. You're just not, because anything else after this is just subpar.
And yeah, I agree. But if you have anything below an RTX 4080, what would you value the most? Great image quality running at high frame rates, or the absolute best possible image quality gimped by low frame rates? If you are on a mid-range GPU, I think it's pretty obvious you should value performance and choose the Dream Air SE instead. And we are talking about double frame rates here. Not 25%, not 50%, but 100% better performance out of the box. That is before you even start optimizing your games and simulators, and before you even enable features like DFR, quad views, GPU upscaling, vertical field of view crop, or lower than native resolutions. It is a no-brainer. That's how I would sum it up. And yeah, by the way, you pay half the price for this thing. Guys, that's all for today. Let me know what you think in the comments down here below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.